Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Andy Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where I feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And today's episode is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create, document, optimize, and implement processes and procedures so businesses can grow and thrive. And today's guest is Stephen Martinez. Hi, Stephen.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on this podcast. I'm so excited to have you. You are a best-selling author, the CEO and the founder of the American Dream event. You are an entrepreneur. You are, you just make things happen. I mean, I know your story. You and I talked, and I'm so impressed. I love your story. You're definitely a hustler. You work hard. You have no problem getting things done. But what you accomplished is incredible, and we're going to talk about it. But I think we should also give a big shout out to Dominic Caminata, who introduced us. So it's always great when great people make great connections. So thank you, Dominic.
Yeah.
And all right, Stephen, let's talk. Let's first of all share with our listeners your story. Just explain a little bit more. What is the American Dream, like in terms of what you do, and how did you even get started, and how did you start on your entrepreneurial road?
Absolutely. Well, first off, thank you for having me. And where do I begin? So usually what I like to tell people is, so my mom and dad immigrated from Colombia. So mom and dad are from Colombia in South America. They come here for an opportunity, a dream. They sacrificed everything just to have a better life, like most people do that come here. So they came here, and then I was born maybe around when I was 10, 11, 12, they got divorced. So I stayed with my mom. My mom was a single mother. She was cleaning houses. I would wake up with her 5 a.m., just helping her out, vacuum, take out the trash, so on and so forth before school. And then something kind of started to resonate, in the back of my head a little bit with, school, education, the American dream. What is the American dream? Are we living the American dream? My mom's working so hard, sacrificing so much. What's going on? And, I always had that kind of thought just in the back of my head. But for me, I guess at the time, school was important. You need to go to school, consistency, that's the American dream, school, stability. So I ended up getting older. I ended up actually getting my bachelor's degree in Europe. I played professional soccer for 4 years. And then COVID hit. And then when COVID hit, it was 2020, so I had to come back here to Houston. And just keep in mind my childhood, the way I was brought up, right? So I've been very, movement. I don't like to be stagnant. I like to be proactive, reactive. And I was like, okay, since the world paused and I have to keep hustling, but nothing's going on, let me apply for my MBA. So I took my GRE, which is like your SAT for business. I don't know how I got accepted, but I did. And I was just, constantly just achieving or thinking I was achieving the American dream, just going to school, getting more education so I can make more money. Then this is where my life changed. This is where it gets interesting, right? So I was doing that, and then I was doing Uber Eats, but I was doing groceries for people because no one would go to Target, Walmart, and I'd go and do groceries. And then on the side, I was doing school. And then we fast forward a little bit, and then my friend is like, hey, it's my birthday. And I'm like, okay, cool, happy birthday, this and that. And he's like, well, let's go out to a bar. And I said, okay, let's go out to celebrate your birthday for a bar. No big deal on that, right? And, we're minding our business, having a good time. And then I see this guy, he's dressed in a business suit, very professional. You can tell he has money. You know when you can just tell. And I was like, man, that must be nice. One day I'll be there, one day. 30 minutes later, me and him were talking. He was like, hey, man, what are you going to do? I was like, well, I'm doing my MBA. I just finished it. I'm going to do an internship as a marketing coordinator. I'm going to have a nice job, a good 9 to 5. And he looked at me. He's like, I did my MBA and I didn't do anything. He's like, now I run a business. Last year we did 20 million. And he looked at me. He was like, if you're serious about this, get my number and I'll change your life. And I was kind of hesitant, you meet someone at the bar at all these weird hours. I'm like, I don't know the guy, I don't even remember his full name at the time. But something inside me, I cannot explain what it is. Maybe it's my gut feeling. I don't know, an intuition I can't explain. A sixth sense said, get his number. So I got his number, and then I called him in the morning at like 7 a.m. And he's like, hey, man, I was waiting for your call. We're leaving to Louisiana in 45 minutes. If you come, this is serious. So as I'm driving, I'm like, hey, what do I tell valet? He's like, oh, Anthony Domenico. So then I Google him, and it turns out he's legit. So I'm like, okay, cool. We're safe. So I show up and he's like, all right, man, we're leaving in 30 minutes. And I just had my t-shirt, some shorts, and I was like, let's go. And then that's where he introduced me to the blue collar industry. So I didn't know anything about the insurance claim process, roofing. I didn't know what a shingle was, nothing. I just knew people and I knew business and I knew how to talk. So I started to pretty much learn everything from the game. He had nothing to lose and I had everything to lose. So he was like, either you figure it out or you don't. For me, it's not a big deal. He was very straightforward like that. And luckily for me, I was raised very strict. So for me, I was able to handle that type of pressure. And I learned everything. I did a great job. He's like, man, you're a killer. I want you to come to Scottsdale, Arizona, come live with me or stay with me, blah, 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 work in the headquarters. I was like, cool. So I went to Scottsdale, Arizona, stayed with him for like 2 months, saving up money. And then I started to see how businesses operated. We speak about operations, procedures, organization, and systems with you, right, Aldi? And for me, I was used to a cubicle, right? And then I see everything. You kind of, it's kind of like when you take a blind horse and you take his blinds off and he realizes, oh, wow, I'm at the race. Like I see the crowd. You know what I mean? Like I was seeing everything. I was like, okay, there's marketing, there's HR, there's admin. This is how you cohesively operate and structure a business for it to operate to 20, 30 million. We're just like kind of stuck into this like role and responsibility. But as an entrepreneur, you have to understand there's an ecosystem. And that's what I started to learn with him. So I was in Scottsdale for around 2 years. I did a lot of great business and also built a lot of great relationships. So those clients became my friends. And then this is where I branched out and did my own thing. So he just sold the conference actually called Win the Storm. And they have maybe 4,000 people show up to these events, blue collar. And he has an online training platform, all sorts of stuff. So we go to these events and I say to myself, man, I see 4,000 contractors, but 80 to 90% of the blue collar space speak Spanish and I don't see one Latino. I was like, kind of like a light bulb moment. I was like, okay, this is interesting. And then I would go to other events with other friends like RoofCon, SRC. They're great events, by the way, great events, but no one's ever targeted and marketed and promoted our market, which is predominantly in the blue collar space. So I said, okay, let me make a concept, make it better, and apply it to a different market. And that's exactly what I did. So I did that. The whole process itself started maybe 4 or 5 years ago. The movement started 3 years ago. It started with me coming back to Houston. We opened up a recruiting service, consulting service. I wrote the book. And then eventually we started to build for the event. We had our first event last year with over 100 people. And then this year we more than doubled in size. We had our event maybe a week ago. We had around 260 people. So we more than double, which is great. So for 2025, we're expecting to hit 400 or 500 people and we just keep growing and growing. But essentially that was the concept of, taking something as simple as meeting someone at a bar and networking with him and getting his number that ended up changing my life.
That's amazing. That's by itself an American dream. It's amazing. It's
Yeah.
amazing. So what are the biggest challenges that you see in, let's say, in the Latino community in terms of that, the Latino community of business owners, what do they need to overcome that is different maybe than other communities, in your opinion?
That's just very simple and straightforward answer. And I think it's fear. So I think our culture and our market, I think we're afraid and we think people don't want to help us. I don't know if it's a subconscious thing or something because, we come from somewhere to a different place, but we need to rewire that chip and that mindset to understand that, hey, there are people there that do want to see you win. I understand there's hesitations, some people might get worried or overthink certain scenarios, but in essence is, like let's say my situation, for example, if I thought to myself, the worst of the worst, oh, this guy has bad intentions, he's weird, I don't know him, I just met him, I'm gonna protect myself, this and that. we wouldn't have this conversation at all. So I think
Right. So
people,
it's basically you're saying you have to overcome the limiting beliefs and the fixed ideas that a certain thing is a certain way, but really look around and have the opportunity. So I agree, like mindset is super important.
Mhm.
Then what do you think organizational why like you have somebody who maybe is very good at a trade, or they learned a trade and taught themselves the trade. What do you see as the biggest obstacles to move from doing the trade really well to actually becoming a business owner?
I think it all comes down to financial literacy. If people understand the ecosystem that's revolved around a business and they apply themselves with knowledge and education, then they would be more successful. I think that's why sometimes people are hesitant to become entrepreneurs and owners because they don't think they know it all. But in reality, is it's quite simple. It's a formula. Every business in any industry has the same principles. They all have sales, they all have marketing, they all have production, quality control, blah blah blah. I think it's about applying yourself to understand that, and it's very straightforward. I think that's the only thing I would say that would limit them to that.
Absolutely. One of the things that I found too, we work with many entrepreneurs,
Mm,
we create the processes, we create systems, is that I see that the owner is basically wearing too many hats.
mm.
And when you wear too many hats, you really cannot expand, and you cannot then have a whole company because, you're basically getting stuck. I mean, do you see that at all?
Absolutely, absolutely. I had the privilege of meeting a lot of successful clients or friends that operate at high level, we're talking 40, 60 million. And I've seen the way they operate. It's like a machine, it's an assembly line. It's really impressive. And I think sometimes it usually starts off like this. It's like you're the top producer for a company and you're making, let's say, I don't know, 4 or 5 million in sales for the company. You're making over 6 figures. So you're making all this money for the company. So you're thinking, oh, I can start my own company now because I'm good at sales. But little do you know, there's a whole other side besides the sales department, right? And then they come in and then they get overloaded because they don't have financial literacy and they don't understand the ecosystem of when it comes to bringing in a business. Cool, you get sales, but do you understand marketing? Do you understand branding? Do you understand systems, procedures, operations, all that other stuff? So then that's where I think it kind of, I've seen that a lot actually. It's kind of funny.
Absolutely. So, that is something that needs to be solved 100%. So when you had your experience, when you went to Louisiana and then you went to Scottsdale, what are
Hmm.
some of the key business, not from your MBA, but from life? What are some of the key lessons that you learned in terms of business?
Okay, so I like to say this actually. So what runs a business? Revenue, right? What runs a revenue? Sales. What runs sales? Marketing. What runs marketing, branding, what drives branding, content. So it all comes down to content and branding. One of the main things that I've learned is you can watch the best movie trailer in the world and you're like, I want to watch this movie. And then you watch the movie and it's horrible. You got sold on the trailer. It's all about content and branding. If you can have the best product and service in the industry, the best restaurant, but if no one knows about it, you're stuck. So in terms of business, I think the most underestimated thing is branding and content. Content is king, consistency is great. When it comes to people that I personally know that sold their companies for 150 million to private equity, they're doing great stuff. The one thing they focus after removing themselves from the company is just building the branding and their content base. It's it comes down to that. You think like some of the biggest companies like Coca-Cola, McDonald's, is content and branding, content and branding. That's the key secret. It's really simple, but it goes a very, very, very long way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know you also, you have a marketing agency. What
Hmm.
are the key components in your opinion of creating good content or great content?
Mhm.
And then let's talk about the practices of consistency, but what makes a good content?
I think first you need to understand your audience. The way I'm a marketing nerd. I like marketing a lot. So the way I like to explain it, marketing is like a tree, right? So you have the root, which is marketing, and then you have your branches. So you have traditional marketing, which is your TV, newspaper, radio. You have your digital, which is, your SEO, your pay-per-click, your Google My Business. You have your social media outlets, right? You have TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, so on and so forth. And then you have branding, you have consistency of content and positioning. So what we do on our side, we do the content side. So we do content, branding, positioning. So we have a team of videographers. on standby, they could work remote or in-house. And then we have editors, social media managers, and then we focus on that side of the content, right? There's also web design, landing pages, all that stuff. So for me, what makes content good content, aside from the consistency, which is important because then you start to subconsciously attract the consumer, is to understand your consumer, what they want, what their needs are. It's the simple story of the water bottle. So if I sold you a water bottle right now, and I'm like, hey, do you want to buy this water bottle for $100? You'll be like, okay, no, he's crazy. I'm good, thanks. But if you're stuck in the desert and I tell you it's the last water bottle in the world, would you buy it? And you have the money, you'll probably buy it, right? So it's understanding the audience and the consumer and their scarcity and how you
And
can
the
attract
needs.
and the needs. Exactly. That's a hard question to answer because everyone's needs is different. You just have to understand your product and service more. But it all comes down to just repetition and content on that side of it.
Well, I think you also need to understand the needs. I mean, from my experience, you have to identify your public. You have to identify who you're selling to, and that particular type, they have their needs, right? I mean, it's kind of like, if you are opening a dog grooming business, and you are going to cater to the, like an upscale neighborhood. I mean, their needs might be different. Maybe their needs is like when they go on vacation every 3 months, they need somebody to actually take care of the dog, whatever it is, not dog grooming, like dog, like sitting, right? So that can be like, you understand your product, but then you have to also understand what need you are actually fulfilling, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Cool. So that's on the branding side. What else did you learn? What other business gems did you get out of those 2 years of observing the person that you met at the bar?
It comes down to systems and operations as well, kind of what you focus on. I think I didn't understand, or I guess I didn't know. Okay, like I understood, cool, content branding, this is how you market, this is how you target your audience. Now you're getting leads. So then once you have leads coming into the company, how do you create an ecosystem and an effective machine, right, to actually build and scale your business to 20, $30 million companies? And it comes to fine tuning, the small things to the big things. And one of them was the systems within his company. Everything was very organized from his HR department to the marketing department, sales department. He created a whole ecosystem, and it was running really well. He didn't even have to be in the company. He could not even show up, and everything would just work. Obviously, you need sales and revenue, but if we're talking about the productivity of the company, it was great, and it was
Well,
things
even
that.
if you have you need sales and revenue for sure, but if you have a system for it
Mhm.
and you have people that can actually follow the system and you have a dashboard when you can see where your sales and marketing are at any given time, then you can really take it to the next level. I mean, then you can really leave the company, you can ensure consistency, you can ensure the things are actually happening, and then you can look for new opportunities, such as when he was talking to you.
Yep, absolutely. I've seen it all too. I've seen some companies, I mean, the construction side is a little bit more outdated, so we're more traditional in that sense. I think we're barely starting to kind of pick up on the innovations and technology. But there's some companies that I've seen that were doing 10 million. And if you tell me if they had a CRM system, I'd say they didn't. They had like old files and cabinets, and then they're picking it up and like, where's Mrs. Smith's paperwork? Where's her estimation? And they couldn't find it. It was, with Dr. Smith or something, right? So you'd be surprised on the things that you would see. And simple things like that can easily help scale a business.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Stephen, so what's next for you? Where are we going with your American Dream conference and with this whole concept?
That's a good question. I personally, so I have a lot of things that I want to do. I want to get into politics. I'm actually in politics right now for the city of Houston. I want to help shape the community and better the community any way I can. One of my mentors always told me, his saying goes, "Why not me?" So if someone's gonna do it, why not me? And I think about that statement a lot. So, in that sense of things, I do take pride in wanting to help the community, the younger generation, the aspiring generation. So that's more of a personal side. Now, in regards to the American Dream, we actually have our mastermind event. So we've noticed that for these big events that are once a year, it's great. It's great. But it's more like motivational, inspiration. You don't really get to dissect the business. So in November 7th and 8th, we're doing a mastermind event. So we're going to have 20 to 30 people. They're doing 2 million revenue plus, and they're looking to break that 5 million mark. And it comes down to systems operations, right? They need to be organized and have everything structured. So we're going to have 20 to 30 people in this mastermind event. Day one, we're going to talk about business, build it, scale it, sell it, the whole A to Z. And we're going to really dissect more into the business and get more personal. Day two, we'll be in the studio. We'll talk about marketing, SEO, digital content, branding, all that good stuff. So that's what we have in November for the mastermind. And then we have our big event again in June for 2025. I'm in the process of writing another book. I'm like holding off on it a little bit though. I want to at least reach 30 years old. I mean, writing 2 books before 30 sounds, I don't know. I feel
It's
like
very, very inspirational. You should.
yeah, I know, but I feel like maybe I should wait till I'm 30 because then there's more, I guess it's more valid. I don't know. I might just say screw it and just write the book. But I keep learning a lot. I think the main secret in all of this is just to be a sponge and learn. Right? You know, they say if you're the smartest guy in a room, you're in the wrong room. So always look to be around people that are smarter than you, doing things that you're not doing, people that inspire you, motivate you. And if there's no one around your circle, find new people. And there's nothing wrong with, you know, being by yourself. Some of the most successful people are like that. So I think it comes down to really knowing your surroundings, knowing your habits, and really creating a legacy. So you say, like, what's the goal for the American dream? The American dream is what, you know, what you're living right now, what I'm living right now, what some people are. And then the reality is that so many people want to achieve their version of the American dream, but they just need that little push, that little guidance, that blueprint, you know, that system procedure. Like, hey, this is how you do it. It's really easy. We want to help you. Let us help you. And let's all make money together, because the money, you know, it's just a tangible, right? And it comes back to you one way or another. That's how I see it. And I think if people understood that, people understood to network, to listen, to educate themselves, and to surround themselves with the right people and do the right thing, I think it goes a long way.
I think so too.
Because I don't chase the money, I'll be honest with you. I don't chase money. I chase the legacy, I chase the impact, I chase building relationships, I chase being of value. How can I be of value? And in return, it's brought me a lot of money. So I think that's the main secret. You know, the moment you lose route of your intentions, then people can see that. And then that's when you start to go kind of downhill. So I think it's always just being centered and focused, giving your life to God, I think is important too. And just doing your best every single day. I think that's the American dream.
Absolutely. Stephen, definitely an inspiration. If people want to find out more about you, where should they go?
So we have a bunch of platforms. So Instagram is Stephen_Martinez, Facebook, Stephen Martinez, YouTube. So if you go on YouTube and you put American Dream Podcast, Stephen Martinez, will be the first one to pop up. If you don't do the visual one, we also have Spotify, Apple, Buzzsprout, and just Google, or not Google, sorry, search up American Dream Podcast, Stephen Martinez, it'll pop up. What else am I missing? Oh, TikTok, Stephen Martinez with 2 Z's. So we're everywhere. We really want to build the brand. It all comes down to our umbrella with the American Dream, but that's where they can find me.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast and inspiring others and show what can be done with enthusiasm, with belief, with grit. It's great. Thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.